Call to order. The Marine and Environmental Resource Task Force Advisory Board, Wednesday, April 12th, 10:02 a.m. So if you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. There it is, through there.
Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Someday.
All right, roll call. Shall we start with our council liaison?
Here. Bill Beach here.
Greg Fossum here.
Steve Johnson here.
Jennifer Rusk here.
Mary Rose Spalletta, present.
Rose Larkin here.
And,
Chad Schutz, environmental staff, present.
and we've got Wendy DiGatano, who has an excused absence, and Rob Ranger.
Roger Ebb.
Is absent. Okay, so.
And just for the record, so if you heard from Rob about he's
I
coming
got
in.
to talk to Rob. He had a change of email, so he wasn't getting his email at his previous email address, so he wasn't confirmed on it. And then Wendy is out, not feeling well.
Okay.
So if it pleases the
Come on
Murph, if they can
Come on over, Eva.
excuse-
We always like to see your smiling face.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And you may have to speak up to be heard on the mics too.
Okay.
Are these the original ones? Yes. They are.
Haven't had a chance to finish.
Okay.
So, Chair, you probably want to just decide if the absences are excused then.
Right, I was saying that Wendy's is approved.
Excused.
And
Excused,
so
I mean.
should Rob, because he didn't get the message.
Did Rob receive, did he get the email?
He did not.
That's what I heard, he did not.
Oh, he did not, then his is also excused. That's unfortunate. Why didn't he not get the, he
He
wasn't on the list?
changed email
Email address?
addresses.
Gotcha. Okay. So, agenda, approval of the agenda.
If I can ask for an addition to assign the chair and vice chair for the task force going forward.
Mhm. Can add that. Chair. Vice chair. Start with that one. I'd also like to add a couple things as well. There's a couple things here I think that I submitted and were edited. So one was just a quick also update on just the remedial projects that we had outstanding, the tree ordinance, the vegetation ordinance, and the South Florida Water Management District Model Ordinance. As you all know, we did something we spent a lot of time on, and I think it was to the point where it was just a matter of the language and the documents for codification. And I know there's a lot going on, but just a quick update from staff to help us understand where that's at in his to-do list with regards to the rebuild. So maybe that's something while we go building back better we can talk about. Do we have agreement with that?
Yes.
Adding that?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
So where are we adding that to, Mr. Steve?
I thought, is that building back better? I mean, or is that, it should be under staff update. Why don't we make that number 4, staff update?
Yeah, I don't really have any staff updates for you, so that's kind of why I didn't include it.
Okay, well.
You don't have any information on the emergency burn project?
So we were discussing,
The remedial projects. But just to understand where that, I mean, the reason I ask is just that's sort of, we did our part on our side and it was in your report. We just need to understand where that is in your report, basically.
so South Florida Water Management District irrigation ordinance and the,
Vegetation ordinance and the tree ordinance. Those are the 3. Those were brought to council. We had agreement moving forward to put the language together, and that was prior to the storm. I think we all agree, yeah, those were in staff's hands
Yes.
after having approval. And that's it. So do we have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
The amended agenda. Yeah, I move that we approve the agenda as amended.
Second it?
Okay, any objection? Hearing no objection, amended agenda is approved unanimously. Approved previous meeting minutes. Since they were just delivered, we'll have to take a minute here and look them over.
But we all don't have copies.
No, that's the problem. Yeah, approve the agenda. So I'll just read them out loud.
Can you defer that to the last meeting?
We can. Is that, you tell me and you're,
Well, you know, I don't,
Yeah, I think so. I think I'd like to read it myself.
Yeah,
okay, well, then do we have a motion to defer to the next meeting?
so moved.
Seconded.
Second, an objection? Okay. Hearing none, the agenda will be, the approval of prior meeting minutes will be deferred till our next meeting. Moving along, public comment. Anybody seeing no public? Hello, hi, is this a public coming for comment?
We're public, but no comment.
Okay, good, excellent, thank you. No public comment, so we will move on. Current items. First up is the staff update, the emergency burn project.
Yeah, if we can do the vote for the chair and the vice chair first.
Oh, that's right, I said I'd move that in there first. Okay, so, do we have any, let's see how we do this. Do we have any, anybody that would like to be chair?
I don't know what we're talking about here.
So basically, on a somewhat regular basis, we change, offer up a change to the chairman and the vice chair for the committee.
And he just got reappointed, so
Oh, I see.
I
Yeah.
move that Steve Johnson remain chair.
I'll second
I
that.
would second that. Oh, yeah, you. Steve, you're the best man for the job.
So it's been moved and seconded. Now we need a vote. Anybody object?
Yeah, I call a vote.
Discussion?
Discussion.
I guess that would be my job as vice chair, because he can't do his own vote.
I have no discussion. I think you, and since you've been the chair for Murph, while I've had a seat, you have really done an absolutely fantastic job. So I would like you to stay chair, please.
You have no desires?
No, I have no desire.
Okay, so how's it, we move to a vote?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4, 0.
you can vote for yourself.
I don't like doing that.
I think there's very strict rules about when you can abstain.
There are very strict rules, okay. 1, 2, 3, 5, vote is unanimous, 5-0. And vice chair?
I nominate Dr. Fossum for vice chair.
I second that.
Is that something you still like to do?
Sure. Yes.
Anybody else of any interest? Jennifer?
Nope.
No? Not now, anyway, right? All right. Do we have a second?
Oh, I nominated. I can't
You
second.
nominate, I'll second.
I seconded.
Oh, you seconded, okay, so, Mary Ann, or for Eva's standpoint, right, for the minutes, Spalletta
Spalletta nominated
nominated,
and Rusk
seconded.
seconded.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Nay, so vice chair 5-0 would be Dr. Fossum. Okay. Very good, staff update?
Yep, so,
Emergency berm. It's a big project, emergency berm.
yep, emergency berm. I'm sure everybody's seen the big piles of sand, so we've been stockpiling, since mid-March. There were some hiccups with, getting approval from FEMA due to, consultations with some of the agencies. Came to an understanding with U.S. Fish and Wildlife and began, towards the end of March. The funding has been obligated by FEMA, and I'm also hearing that it's been expedited, which means that funds should be available on the front end to reduce the town's financial cash flow liability. It's an expensive project, nearly $8 million, so, and very quick, so that was a worry. We've been meeting regularly, weekly with the contractors, the coastal engineer, FWC, Audubon's been invited. They came to the first couple meetings, and as well as Turtle Time, the main turtle permit holder, to all be in sync with what's going on, scheduling, and all the wildlife concerns. We are having some breaks in the berm due to some shorebird nesting. So nesting has started with snowy plovers, Wilson's plovers, killdeer nests, among the ones that I've heard about, in and around the CWA. And as far as sea turtle nesting, starting to, planning on getting out at night soon and starting to address some of the lighting. But I'm sure there'll be lighting issues with all the temporary housing that we have going on around the island, and try and work with folks to mitigate the light pollution out on the beach for the sea turtles.
Where did the sand come from?
Stewart Mine in Immokalee.
Are you done, Chad?
Yes, sir.
What, I know nothing about the berm. How tall is it supposed to be? How wide is it? Is it on the property of the people? Is it on state property? Where is it located? You know, some of the logistics of.
Sure, so I would just point you to our website, fmbgov.com/beach. The construction plans are posted there. The width and the height depends on where we're at on the beach, what elevation was needed to protect the upland property from a 5-year storm plus wave run-up. So it's a coastal modeling exercise that dictates the elevation of the berm, and then the slopes dictated by FEMA guidelines. I think it's generally a 4-to-1 or 5-to-1 slope off the berm. It's approximately 6.5 feet above mean high water. So mean high water is 0.3 NABD, and the berm is approximately 6.5 feet NABD. And yes, it is on private property, which is why we're requesting easements.
So there's no permission needed for the private property?
Oh, sure, there's permission.
Waivers, they have to sign a waiver.
Okay.
Are these berms gonna be also near the beach accesses?
Yep. Yep, so, there was a request or some input from the Coastal Advisory Committee that I sit on for the Lee County TDC, Tourism Development Council. One of their requests was to make our accesses more resilient. So having the berm there may give us some material to maybe make the accesses more resilient with a bit of elevation in the sand in front of the accesses. So they will place the berm. It will be inaccessible for some time, but we plan on shifting it to allow for people to access it a little bit easier without having to climb over the berms.
Are you finding that residents and business owners are more receptive to the idea of having sand dunes now since Hurricane Ian?
I think it's a mixed bag.
It's a mixed bag.
Some yes, some no, and I think it's some yes, some no, and it's pretty polar.
Chad, there was a lot of scouring in front of some of the seawalls, that there's big trenches in front. Is the sand gonna fill all that in? And if so, they need to take all the junk out of it before they put sand in.
Yeah, absolutely. So removing the debris is a prerequisite for placing sand. They're not placing the sand directly next to infrastructure just because they don't want to have the liability of, impacting that infrastructure. So they're placing it right off, several to 10 to 20 feet. But it is expected that sand will move into the scour.
They should get that junk out of there before it moves, though.
Yep, that is a prerequisite for
Okay, good,
the sand's place.
good, because I can just imagine a turtle digging down and hitting an old beach chair and hightailing it out. when we
Or
lose the nest.
glass and
Yeah.
slicing.
So we'll keep our eyes on that.
In the business plan on the website, does it list the addresses of the people that signed waivers for personal properties? No? No?
There's not, the property owners are not allowed to pull the berm sand into the scour either.
Oh,
Is that
that's a
correct?
good question.
Or is that, would that
They'll be able to
require
rake the
DEP?
berm just like they can rake, wherever else onto their property.
So they'll be able to take the sand from the berm and pull it into the scour. Does that require a DEP permit or?
Steve, we're just trying to work with people to help them get their property whole again. I can ask DEP if they require anything for raking, but yeah, I guess, so raking does require a permit from DEP. Yeah.
Using a normal rake, they want to pull it in with a rake? I mean,
Yep.
a rake will pull it in.
Are you talking the tractors with rakes or hand rakes? Because I don't think, these are high enough, I don't think the tractor rakes are gonna be able to do anything near it.
Well, but also you're using a tined rake. That's not, I mean, if you're using a shovel, or a bobcat or something, that's a whole different situation, I would say.
Kind of like a box blade.
Or a box blade, yeah.
I mean, they have one right where my axis is. It's pretty big.
Yeah.
It's above the seawall.
But I mean, it would seem that, and I don't know what the caveats are of it, but would that, doesn't that undermine the reason they have the berm if they're pulling it off, taking the sand off and lowering the berm by distributing it across their property? I mean, this is just a question.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, in my mind,
I mean, is there
the
rules,
real-
I guess what I'm asking, does FEMA allow you to do that? I mean,
Well,
it's,
the real value to me is for the turtle nesting season, because, it's supposed to, we're gonna be doing beach renourishment next year, so it's like, if we're gonna have a storm this summer, but it's really to keep the turtles from walking out onto Estero Boulevard.
That's what this is.
And I think that probably keeping the berms high and vegetated would be the stimulation for the turtles to not go beyond.
yeah, but the purpose is to protect the uplands. I mean, I think that's
It's
technically
supposed, it's supposed to be
the
for
sole-
like a 5-year storm.
Right.
Is the earmarks, but we're really talking one summer, because they've already started the renourishment program, which is going to be much bigger than this.
Sure, oh yeah.
So it's really, what do we need this season? And in my mind, anyway, keeping the turtles from wandering down the Estero Boulevard is a very
Right.
important thing. I have a hard time imagining there's gonna be a storm that's gonna damage something that didn't get damaged by Ian.
So for
Right.
example, my street, Miramar Street, has a scour that's probably 6 feet down, right along the side of the cement road leading to the beach access. That's on someone else's property, I believe. It's super dangerous, and if that person decides not to have berms filled in or sand filled in where the cement ends, somebody could fall in and hurt themselves.
But you're talking about on their property.
It's right, well, it leads out, but yeah.
It's perpendicular.
It's on their property, so if they don't ask for that sand to be filled in, or is that the responsibility of them?
Well, I mean,
It's private property,
I know
yeah.
a lot of people like me, we paid to have sand put in,
Okay.
Right.
to fill in some scours.
What do you do if they haven't, I don't even think they've come to their property since Ian, so.
Eventually, I mean, there's a lot of motivation for private property to fill it in. There's liability concerns, because, a lot of people have no idea. They walk around flip-flops over everything. And the other is, eventually, they're gonna wanna develop it. They're gonna have to, bring the lot, make it ready for development. So,
So one other question I had is, will they be placing sand, water, on the water side of the ECL line, even if that's not something I'll do, put it on state land regardless of, I mean, to get the sand onto the beach, which is, I think, is what we're trying to do here, right?
Right, so if somebody declines, would we put it waterward of the ECL?
Right, would you put it on
lands?
state land? Yeah,
Not at this stage, that's not something that's in the plan, so.
yeah.
There's one place where, we were considering moving it up, but, I think we're still in talks about that.
Hmm.
How will the planting work, Chad? When does that begin?
After the renourishment project,
Oh, so that won't happen for a while.
so the berm's not gonna be vegetated.
The advice of the coastal engineer is that that renourishment project, putting 1 million cubic yards on the beach, and it's a big, messy dredge kind of thing happening, you would probably just be destroying what you've just planted.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's okay with FEMA, because I think they're paying for vegetating the berm, correct? Are they, so we're basically just postponing it until the renourishment?
You'd have to ask FEMA.
Well, I mean, the town's the permanent, I mean, they're,
I can't speak for FEMA.
but you're the project manager. So, does that put us in a bad position for the town? If
Yeah,
we
if-
accept funds for,
We haven't accepted any funds for vegetation.
but then,
We have an invoice for vegetation, we have a plan for vegetation.
And it's not a requirement of putting the berm in, getting FEMA reimbursement?
it's not a requirement? Gotcha.
Will we still be able to ask FEMA to do that once we do the renourishment next year, or is there a time limit?
So, we have two things happening with FEMA. We have Cat B with the emergency berm, we have Cat G, with the engineered beach on the north. Let me just see if I have something pasted. I still have that in. I'm not sure the mechanics financially, how it's gonna happen. I know we have a plan for it with TDC, and with the renourishment, it must be planted for TDC and for FDEP, so we have a plan to pay for it on that way. Whether or not we can also ask FEMA for some money, we're certainly gonna try. Whether that works, it's my first FEMA rodeo, so I'm not sure what's gonna happen.
Good. Any other questions on berm? All right, let's move
When
along
will it be
here.
done, Chad? How long are they still gonna be dumping the sand on the beach?
So it's about 90 days.
Oh,
from
a
when we
long time.
started, so April, May, June. So should be towards the end of June, we should be wrapping up, maybe in the beginning of July. I forget the dates that we gave them. Maybe July 6th. I think it was just after 4th of July. But we may, depending on the project's going, if you never know what's gonna happen, things may get extended, they may finish early. That's how long the contract's for right now.
Thank you.
And you've, just for information, you stage the sand around so you minimize travel on the beach, right? That was one of the reasons why there's so many piles up and down the,
Yeah, so the contractor, that's kind of the purview of the contractor, but probably for, staging it around limitations in space, less cost to move it once it's been staged. Would be my guess.
But my understanding is they have to travel within sort of where the berm is, these heavy construction vehicles.
right? Well, I'm sure the mechanism's in place to work with turtle time to make sure.
Oh, yeah,
we-
I think they're involved. As Chad said, they're part of the, I don't know what committee you call that, or the update committee.
So Chad, if I see somebody out there wheelbarrowing the sand and then moving it wherever, should I send you photos again, or we're gonna say they're probably doing the right thing?
Yeah, so I think that was a beach cleanup crew. I can't remember that exact story, but I was told it was a beach cleanup crew, or they were getting debris, or something was going on.
All right, well, when in doubt, I just send it to you and
Sure.
you do the dirty work. I don't
Just
want
go
to
and
argue
ask.
with people.
Yeah.
So I will continue.
Sure.
Okay, moving along here. You've got staff update shorebird nesting.
Yeah, I tried to address that. I mean, shorebirds, we have Wilson, Snowies, and killdeer laying nest. I don't have exact counts, but we're marking them on the berm plans to indicate breaks in the berm or no work zones until they hatch and fledge are no longer an issue. So monitoring daily where the construction zones are at. We've already been monitoring this will be the 10th day prior to the berm being placed in and around the CWA. So we monitored that in accordance with our FDEP permit guidance to monitor that area prior to placing sand.
Gotcha. And the FWC's been identifying those and roping them off, is that how that works? And
Yep.
they communicate?
Well, bird monitors, yeah.
Bird monitors?
Yeah, FWC is doing their own thing. We have hired bird monitors to do that part.
Hmm.
I think we have a little bit of a problem with the area that's marked off for the plovers. People have been pulling down the signs. This morning, some of them had been pulled down. I don't know who's in charge of monitoring that, but it's important that they stay up because we have it's a very busy area, especially with dogs in the morning. People love to bring their dogs down there, and if the dogs run, those poor little chicks can be harassed very easily.
Where
Right in
we
front of
see-
Wyndham.
In front of Wyndham.
Yeah. They marked off a very large area, which I think is great. I think they need it. But I think many people feel very proprietary about the beach down there, and they don't like how much has been marked off, and I think as a result, they are displaying their anger by pulling down some signs.
Yeah, I haven't seen any signs pulled down, but I know there was some concern about it being posted without any communication with the property owner.
Right. I hope that's been satisfied because we want those birds to survive and thrive.
Yep, as does the property owner.
Good. Glad to hear it.
And you sure they're pulled
I'm
and
not
not
sure that's
blown
the
over?
case.
Because,
It was really windy
yes,
yesterday.
I was,
It was, but they were out. I saw them in the morning. They are the cutest.
All right, let's move along here, shall we? Sea turtle nesting on staff update.
Yeah, so again, just gonna start going out and identifying issues, kind of pre-season inspections, working out logistics, trying to get something with four-wheel drive so I don't get stuck at night, kind of thing, and be out there.
All right, that starts,
No nest yet.
that officially, it starts May 1st.
Yes, sir.
That's when the town recognizes it anyway, right? So I think Turtle Time will be out there April 15th to start
Monday.
surveys, yeah. And as you had mentioned earlier, lighting's probably will obviously be an issue.
I think
Is
so.
there,
I mean, we have a lot of new structures, you know, be they mobile homes or trailers or what have you, that are gonna have exterior lights that, you know, a lot of people are concerned about safety, not having street lights, et cetera, so, and there's not a lot of, structure and vegetation blocking.
so historically, I don't know if the town kept that list of lights that would be turned that were visible from the beach, and they would submit that to FPL, is that right?
Historically, yep.
Yep.
Between me and Public Works, yeah.
Right, and so is that the approach this year, that basically identify those that can be seen from the beach, put the list together and submit it?
I'll get with Public Works and see what the plan is, if they already have a plan or not.
Public Works? All right.
seems like most lights are going to be visible from the beach because
Right.
vegetation and buildings are gone.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So if it's a house that's down on a street and you can see their porch light and it's 6 houses down, do you want pictures of that if it can be seen from the beach?
Yeah, send me everything you got.
Okay.
So with the clarification now, any light that's visible from the beach is a violation. It doesn't have to be in the V zone or seaward of the coastal construction line or anything like that.
I guess that was my point.
That's,
Yeah.
Or
that's,
my
that's
question.
correct. I mean, the way it reads is that if it's direct, indirect, or, what's the third one? Direct, indirect, or
cumulative.
Or
cumulative
cumulative.
from the beach, then it's out of compliance. That's exactly how it
So
works.
even below.
It could be in the back bay, sure. Yeah, so, and it's the town's responsibility then to prevent that from happening.
And a lot of those homes are probably not used to that. If there's 5 houses gone on one side of the street and you're the 6th home and you've never had to worry about lighting, there's gonna be a lot of people that might be surprised with
Yeah.
with the fact that they are
Yeah, I've talked to,
non-compliant.
some homeowners have actually recognized it
Oh,
already.
that's good.
Yeah, which is good, yeah, I was surprised when they
Yeah.
brought it up. So, I have a neighbor that said, geez, you know, we never had to worry about this, but we're gonna have to start worrying about it now, so they're taking, making efforts to ensure that they're in compliance, so, so that's good. But also, I think, maybe through advisories, I mean, maybe, I was gonna have that in a members report, but basically, what kind of content can we provide Jenny to just get people thinking about that, knowing that
Well,
that's
are
gonna be
the
a case.
alerts that you get on your phone, I get
Mhm.
text message alerts where, so
Mhm.
it might be a good idea to start sending those out maybe in a couple weeks to people.
All right, sure, preparation of the season.
Related to lighting, how's the street lighting projects coming along?
Not sure.
I thought FPL had a big presentation, and I saw town council said they were gonna get free lights.
Well, complicated. FPL, they own and rent, right? They lease, they don't, so, and they don't let anybody else's lights go on their poles. So it means they can give you free lights, but you don't have a place to put them. What are you gonna do? On the side streets, it may be more possible to put our own poles up. On Sierra Boulevard, it's very difficult. And so we can actually, we can put some amber lights up. We can enter into a contract, but I think last time I heard, I don't think they had the supply to do it, at least, 6 months ago, when we were putting up emergency lights. But it's certainly on the agenda. Financing is a big problem at the town now. And then it costs us more is frowned upon by the budget people.
And I heard the FPL say free lighting, but that's, like you said, not poles and.
Yeah, they didn't present it that way, because like I said, they own the lights. So if they got free lighting from FEMA and charged us less, that would be something, but I didn't see them offer that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it something we can ask for? They may have not offered, but.
They're like almost like a government bureaucracy. They have the way of doing things.
Yeah, there's either private build, which it sounds like the town is pursuing, versus utility. And the utility, private build is much higher initial cost because you're buying all that equipment, but you're running, your
Daily costs are
your
less.
utility costs are much less. So, the time that they're the lifetime of the equipment is the return on investment's better.
Yeah.
It's much less initial cost to go with FPL, but it's they charge you a ton. Leasing for the pole, leasing for the light, all that as long as energy. So my impression and opinion is that they with the disaster relief funding available, it sounds better off pursuing private build because they potentially can attract those funds between maybe it's the HUD stuff that's going to the county, or it's there's money coming out of Tallahassee. There's another source, I think, Bill, that they were considering.
Yeah, I stumbled on the USDA because we are, and they were the people who work for the town. They were told that because we're coastal, we wouldn't qualify. But as it turns out, our median income is low enough to qualify with the USDA fund, and our town is small enough to be considered rural. And yeah, our median income in the 2010 census, the one they're using, is lower than Benito or Estero.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, as someone who was on the island immediately after Ian, the dark sky was beautiful.
It was.
Gorgeous, yeah.
I still would like to help pursue that. I know this is not probably the best time, but I think as we rebuild, keep in mind the dark sky, I think, would attract more tourists than most anything else besides the beach.
Well, that's a good segue because we have Building Back Better. So maybe we'll start with the two items that are on here and then talk about those types of things too. But so Building Back Better, Chad, you'd kind of written that, beach accesses.
Right, so that kind of goes back into what I was saying with, we're going to build this berm. It's going to be a pretty uniform berm of sand down the beach. It is going to be in front of accesses for some time while it's built. And then we'll need to push some sand but just the discussion of making our accesses more resilient and putting a little bit of buffer in front of the accesses somehow, instead of just a hole that'll,
They'll scour like they did. I mean, all those accesses were just all absolutely scoured.
yeah, I mean, and I don't know if that's gonna stop that in that kind of catastrophic, 100-year storm or whatever Ian was, but, in the 5, 10, maybe even 20-year storm, it should help buffer, water coming onto Estero and beyond.
Mhm.
So that was kind of my thinking on the accesses. I know, they were talking about, accesses and trying to make more of a zigzag pattern. I think
Right.
we have some dunes where we can maybe take advantage of the width of the dune and encourage more of a zigzag pattern over the width of the property, but with the accesses, usually the width of the dune in combination with the width of the property, there's just not enough room to do anything that's gonna make, anything very meaningful. So I think,
Are they
Or-
consistent, the accesses properties? No.
there's nothing consistent in Fort Myers Beach.
Right. I assumed that was the case, but I had to ask.
But yeah, just having a dune feature in front of some of these accesses at least to help that storm surge, keeping that storm surge back, and then also keeping that sand on the beach whenever you do have a surge.
Mhm.
I'm sure a lot of people noticed that anything that was well vegetated, proper dune, tended to keep their sand a lot better.
Yeah, no doubt
And
about
got
it.
it back a lot faster.
Got it back a lot faster.
Mhm.
And thoughts about
Will they be shaped
bridging
in
over the
comma?
berms instead
Kinda
of
like what we were talking
cutting
about
through?
I think it's probably gonna be on a,
Like a dune walk,
access
like
by
a
access
property walk.
basis. I mean,
Yeah.
very, if you consider this the walkway, y'all are the Gulf, and having, something of a buffer like that.
So you would be kind of going out to the sides of it.
Right.
Still a
I mean,
comment.
any thought of looking at those
No,
accesses that had the most
Yeah.
walkover, wash away and putting bridges there instead of,
Yeah, that was also a discussion, so, having walkovers, building the walkovers higher so that the light can get in and you have vegetation underneath it to stabilize the ground. Maybe doing that, that see-through planking that you sometimes see on docks. It's a lot more expensive, but that also would allow light to allow, growth underneath.
Do you have any latitude in like separating the planks a little bit? Or is that code?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
No,
Not
no,
sure. But that's something that they do with docks like in aquatic preserves where they have seagrass concerns. They'll have minimum gaps that they have to have on the planking to allow the light to get down to the seagrasses. So all those things are up for discussion if y'all have any input.
I was just thinking those beach accesses that had the most washout might benefit by maintaining the berm and putting a walkover. Not, maybe not all of them, but, some of the beach accesses had tremendous washout. And putting a beach access at sand level, I think, just is inviting the disaster to happen again.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what the science says, if there's any patterns. I know Dr. Savarese, they're doing some LiDAR to see elevation changes right after the hurricane, where the scours are at. It seems like you had the most scour if you had something that was stabilized next to something that was unstabilized. So whether that's a seawall and open sand, or if it's vegetation, and then open sand, that's where you got the most scour, because that open sand just became a conduit for the water.
All I know is where I live, Charlie tried to make an inlet right through the island there, and so did Ian. So that is, we're two hurricanes that had major water events, tried to do the same thing in the same location.
Where is that?
Just north of Point South by Madeira, on Madeira Street. It washed out the houses there. I mean, the water just went rushing through there, washed out 3 houses, and probably had a 10-foot deep, ravine that it made in that area.
where that seawall failed,
Seawall, oh yeah, the seawall did fail by Point South, but I don't know if that was the cause or just the result.
consequence, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think there are certain access points that are repeating washout areas that might look at those differently than the other ones.
And just, I have to take off for another meeting, but
Good luck, Phil.
thanks, guys.
Good seeing you.
I think there's definitely a correlation between seawalls and scours. It, just from the time I spend on the beach, that's what it looks like to me. If you have a seawall that ends, there's probably a scour there.
Yeah, Chad said, I mean, you've got a hardened structure
Yeah.
versus
It just pushes all that energy.
a fluid structure,
The
exactly.
one-
It's just,
The
Yeah.
lowest point.
And makes the damage much worse than if it had been distributed throughout the whole area.
Well, that's what I'm saying, keeping the berm intact and doing a bridge over in those areas
It might work, right?
might help.
Yeah. Something we should think about.
all right. Vegetation and trees, under building back better.
I have all kinds of fun
Actually, I
vegetation
have
stuff.
one more thing in regards to
Oh.
beach accesses.
Uh-huh.
My street has raised money to, for, I guess it should fall under vegetation and trees instead, well, both, beach
Okay.
access, and they've donated $5,000. But I'm assuming that the town is going to plant and redo the beach accesses. And where is that money gonna be coming from?
I think we have a public assistance request into FEMA.
Okay, so it's going to come,
So,
so
Jen, they raised the money specifically for
for
what?
our beach access.
For the beach access.
For my beach access.
Because they want to have one
They
that's,
want it back. They want it
functional.
functional, educational,
and what does it need then? Is it all still
there's
scoured?
still, no, not anymore, but, except for that one property I was mentioning on to the right, but, just the vegetation is gone, except for some
So-
seed grapes are still there, but it's just, it needs, sprucing up and cleaning and rocks and things like that.
So-
And some signs.
Do they want to do it themselves, or they want the
No,
town
they
to take
want-
the $5
it's- Yeah,
grand?
the 5,000 was a GoFundMe, so it was people that, raise money, and then they want that money to go to Miramar Street, beach access.
So we can do that, Chad? We can have private groups that want to direct their monies to a certain,
Well, I would say
Have been
whatever,
encouraging
sounds
y'all to-
messy.
Been encouraging you to do an NGO for a while, a 501c3, and do a little charity, do like projects where,
well, how would I go about doing something like that? How,
Corporate.
does she have to send the money to the town?
No, establish a nonprofit. is what it's saying.
How does it go?
Nonprofit.
just start
establish a
as nonprofit?
Right. As far as a NGO giving money to the town, I'm not sure of the mechanisms for that, but I can
Well,
ask.
people,
We know how that works with our
yeah,
donations to
right,
Murph Pop.
right, exactly, I was about to say, but,
It's a nightmare.
yeah. Well, for example, when we were talking about the beach libraries, remember the beach, the little house, little libraries? That was something that our neighborhood just sort of put together and was able to put a beach access and on our own. So,
Right.
we'll see what FEMA, I guess, brings to the table and how much money is gonna be, which beach access is gonna get signs and educational signs and things like that. Like, how are you guys gonna decide that? Are you just gonna put all the educational signs and certain plants back on the same beach accesses that had all that stuff? For example, like Mango Street had a really neat educational about the rack line, what you find on the rack line. I believe Connecticut had one. So which streets are going to be decided on who gets the educational signs and things like that. So
Which street is yours?
Miramar.
I'm there. No, just kidding. So,
Well, you're right. There wasn't any there, but I think that's what we would like. We would
Right.
like, and that 5,000 could go towards those things.
yeah, so I will try and facilitate a conversation with Public Works, who's in charge of that. Public beach access is Public Works, so I will
Yeah, they don't
facilitate a discussion. We're
still have any of those signs, so they all have to be reordered.
Ordered and redone. And
Oh.
it's a project.
I think it's, what is FEMA and insurance
Oh, right.
covering first and
Yeah.
getting that situated, and then maybe going back to TDC and seeing what they can supplement.
So in order to get it's a 503C, you said?
501c3.
501c3.
And that's more just for taking in charity.
Is that just something that the town actually does for us, or is that just something we can do on our own as a committee,
As a private citizen.
as a private citizen? Okay.
I mean, the committee is, it's an advisory committee. Y'all should be advising town council.
Right.
I think, if it's not on the Marine Resource Task Force agenda as a project, then, and it's a project for a separate entity, then y'all could talk about, those projects because it's not on the MRF agenda,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, then this, I had another idea. I don't know if that falls under having to have a 501c3, but I came up with an idea to raise money for the community and the businesses. And I thought it would be fun to have maybe a music festival or some sort of concert to raise money to get FMB green again. I was seeing somebody had come up to the pop-up a few weeks ago and came up to me and said, I lost my, I can't remember the trees that we gave away on Arborist Day. And he goes, I wish that you guys would do that again. And I started thinking, well, maybe we should do that again. We should do that, but even a bigger, in a bigger way, like coming up with some plants to give away.
Getting some more mature trees rather than the.
Because that's one of the things that I have been so sad about with this island is it's just so bleak. It's brown. I mean, without even dealing with all the rubble, it's just so sad. And we've lost so much greenery that I would like to maybe for a committee to see if we can either do another, fundraiser. I don't know if we can do a fundraiser then.
Again,
right?
I think that's more of a,
It's a
yeah,
proactive activity.
yeah,
Okay.
get something, get an entity going that you want to do projects with.
Okay.
And, get your special event permit and, whatever financial mechanisms you need to take in charity, be tax compliant.
I mean, before doing a replanting, I guess, Rose, you'd be the person to ask, is how much rain do we need to wash out the salt before we start replanting?
That's a good question.
Yeah, some people are waiting on that because they're waiting for rainy season. Although Stephen Brown did a talk on Sanibel, and it was just like really just add in a lot of compost into the top of your soil and mix it in, and you're good to go with native plants because they can adjust. So that's
We've had some native plants that just died, and some that amazingly did not.
Yeah.
And then if you go down on Hickory Island, all those trees that died, I don't know what they were. I mean, there's just a lot of dead trees. On our street, there's a bunch of mangroves that died.
Yeah.
So I'm concerned about the salt content. I mean, our well water has salt, and so we're just adding more salt onto more salt. And what's the best way to replant? And I think replanting is necessary, but I don't want to put a whole bunch of plants in and then they die.
right. But there's also sun requirements and light requirements.
Yeah, but I mean,
But yeah.
starting the organization now, get money in later, might have enough time for the salt to be washed away enough that we're not going to kill plants.
And you see the salt tolerant trees and grasses and forbs are coming back on the dunes, and you can see the mahoganies and the gumbo limbos putting out some leaves, as soon as they get a bit of rain, so.
We have
Yeah,
a whole
little
bunch
bit-
of mangroves just died. You know, aren't they one of the most salt-tolerant plants there are? Because they grow in the,
Well, probably fit in the
Well,
salt.
did
I
they
tell 'em.
die during in or they died
After.
after? Oh, so you
After.
planted?
no, these are native,
That could be the petroleum, that could be all the.
Yeah, but I
all
mean-
Yeah,
the
the chemicals in the
pesticides,
water.
the
Yeah, I don't think that's a salt issue.
Roundup, yeah, I don't think that's a salt issue either.
they don't have a lot of petroleum in
Yeah,
them.
but we basically swept every liquid product from the 10 feet from the ground up and distributed it. So under Build Back Better though, I mean, we have vegetation and trees. What, you know, there's been a lot of posting and destruction too, which is really unfortunate. I mean, what are we doing about clear cutting lots and stuff? I mean, we had a neighbor that had 5 live oaks, mature live oaks, clear cut them all. And they came in and they destroyed the building first and the oaks remained. I thought, great, you know, somebody's paying attention. Next day I walked by and they were all cut,
Wow.
all of them,
I
all
thought the
5
limit
of
was
them.
3, that you
Just
could.
cut.
You could cut
You can
3
cut
trees in a year
you've got-
on your property that you.
Right,
could do.
exactly, you could
That
three,
was the-
right.
And we didn't redo that ordinance, it's not finalized yet, the revision, but that
3
was.
natives, but normally you have to mitigate if you go above 3. Is that how it reads, Chad? The old one?
So there's some exemptions for storm damaged trees in the ordinance and also statewide. It's
Right,
tough.
is
I mean,
anybody
it's-
going,
it's-
is anybody coming and asking, can you evaluate this as an arborist, have to say that, I believe that arborist has to say this is damaged or diseased?
I don't think our code says that an arborist has to evaluate it.
But there's, I mean, there's another one at, you know, on Flamingo, I guess, also. I mean, clear cut all these sable palms. They had taken out all the invasives the year before. The property changed hands, and I think you know the property I'm talking about. And then they came through and just clear cut all the sable palms that were on the perimeter of the lot. I mean, again, that's, you know, the town's riding up and down the streets looking for a homeowner that's cutting a 2x4, but nobody's actually monitoring what's going on with the landscaping requirements of the town. I mean, you got the situation at
So there is-
the beach
there is-
theater too,
there is no
where
one?
they clear, I mean, they just clear cut all those mangroves.
Yeah, that's
behind
enough to
it.
make you sick to look
Is
at
it-
that.
Threw dirt on top of them and thought they were
Is
gonna.
that part of code enforcement, is
Oh, I
to
think
also
they're-
look at the planting and taking trees down? It is. So are they going up and down the streets looking for that right now?
Right now, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
You know, if
Clearly not, I mean.
if you have a complaint, send it to code@fnbgov.com.
What happens at the beach theater? Do they have to replace those mangroves?
So they are set to come in front of the magistrate on the 20th. They are indicating that they plan to do a seawall. And so if you are stabilizing the shoreline with the seawall, and that is a permitted or an exempt activity, then removing the mangroves is also an exempt activity under state law. So if, and by our ordinance, if they provide a permit or an exemption for that.
But they don't have
But
one
that's
as of
usually
now.
prior to the project,
Not after.
obviously.
I had
mean,
this,
so,
sorry.
go ahead, finish.
I had the same discussion with FDEP, so they're gonna get back to me on, I think I talked to her yesterday or the day before.
That would be a terrible precedent if they can go ahead
Of course.
and do the wrong thing and then afterwards get permission to do it. Holy cow, I hope that isn't the way it works. Wow.
Yeah.
That was such a blatant violation.
Well,
Yes.
right
I don't
now,
think
it's
I'll-
honestly like wild, wild west.
Isn't it
I've seen
true?
so many things happening that really shouldn't be happening.
People are taking advantage of the
Yes.
situation without
Yes,
question.
correct.
Driving down beach accesses to access their property, you know.
Oh, man. Yeah. But I mean, when anybody driving down the boulevard can see that area that used to be filled with mangroves is now just an absolute bare spot. And nothing happens to them? Holy spit.
Yeah, it's a
Wow.
problem. So what can we do about it, actually? I mean, so.
Nothing,
My point about building back, better is, again, I mean, it's gotta be the communication, right? I mean, isn't this the right time when people are building back to tell them to put in native plants?
That's what we're doing in
To
the pop-up,
avoid,
yeah.
monoculture lawns, to plant native trees, to not take down, remind them that there are land development codes that prohibit just clear cutting lots. Again, what can we do besides communicate? Is my point.
Well, and
Enforce?
That'd be a
Well-
big one too, but
I mean, it's either communicate and enforce. I mean, that's.
And I would say whatever business goes in that beach theater, it should be blackballed until they replace those mangroves. I think that's lousy.
I don't think we can blackball people, but.
Well, I can.
yeah, you can personally do what you like,
Yeah.
certainly.
The township can.
But certainly, that's a great way to say, okay, I want a seawall, so I can have boat docks.
Wow.
And
Isn't
just
it?
do it.
And
yeah.
they just did it.
Over a
They
weekend,
just
over a
did it.
weekend,
Yeah.
into the night.
Oh.
Yeah.
Into the night, yeah.
Weekend,
With-
yeah. Yeah, the weekends are bustling.
Yeah.
And as you say, people are struggling to get their lives together, begging for permits, waiting forever to do the right thing. This group went ahead and did a blatantly wrong thing.
Yeah, I mean.
And it seems there's
it'd
no
be difficult to find
repercussion.
somebody that didn't realize that mangroves were protected.
Exactly.
In the state.
That's
Yeah.
why they did it at nighttime
Yep, sure.
And on weekends.
and on weekends. I mean, it's terrible. Yeah, we will lose a lot if we allow this to continue.
Yeah.
The island will not be what it could be.
Well, and we still have a lot of information on our section of the town's website. I mean, the place where all the properties, the 760 properties that were identified with invasive plants, that's still on there where people or business owners could go and look to see if they were identified. And on the other side, there's still a PowerPoint and information from the University of Florida, IFAS. And then I brought some new stuff. The Sanibel Captiva Conservation Group came up with a list of plants that are Florida native plants that are tolerant of occasional saltwater flooding. But it's from ground covers, wildflowers, grasses, trees, shrubs. And actually, right after the storm, well, not right after, but in December, they came up with a whole PowerPoint thing with colored photos of plants that survived on Sanibel after Ian. I mean, it's like 17 pages of plants.
that on their
Labeling what they
website?
are.
Yeah, is that on their website?
It's on, not
Yes.
on our website, no, but I'd like it to be added.
Yeah.
Well, you can talk to Jenny, and she'd be happy to add content as long as you get her the.
And then,
But not
Is
only
that on
put it
Sanibel's
on there, we
website,
need
or is
to
that
let people
SCCF?
know that it's there.
right, that's the problem of
That's
getting
the
the word
problem.
out.
I mean, as a committee, we can educate, we can observe, and we can report. We can't enforce, cannot. So those are the three things we can do. Educate, broadcast the information better, observe or help try to promote observation, and promote reporting. Those are what we can very easily work on. You know, educate that how many trees can be cut down, sable palms are protected, you know. And yeah, we're not going to get everybody. That's why there's still murders and robberies in the United States. But I mean, if we, you know, some people may honestly not know.
Well, that's true, and they've
Oh,
been very
absolutely.
receptive at the pop-up. I mean, people
So-
are dying to get
Yeah.
plans that they can,
But we need to get to the contractors and excavators and things. Those are the people that are doing it.
Yeah, the clear cutting is just amazing.
So-
I mean, it's just clearing lots, side lot to side lot. It's amazing. So, but also, I think we skipped staff update 4, which was just that update on the remedial projects. And one of the reasons that I think is important is because those 3 projects, well, 2 of them specifically, the tree ordinance and the vegetation ordinance, which are basically been agreed upon. Like I said, the town council has agreed that it's a great idea, and they were waiting for the language, is because as they rebuild, they have to comply to those ordinances, which specifically the tree ordinance, which again was Councilwoman Hassafras's, I think one of her desires was to get something in place and split that out from the vegetation ordinance as it was, that certainly gives some limitations to what you can, I think, can and can't put in, because the vegetation ordinance also, we had proposed that you're not allowed to put in class 1 invasives, and right now that doesn't exist. So as you rebuild and re-landscape, you can start putting in Mexican petunias again, you can start putting in all those invasives that the island would benefit by being rid of them. So that's why originally I had requested it to be on the agenda, and I know again that we've got berms and we've got post-disaster activities that's taken up staff's time, but, so my question is when does that, how does that fit into the environmental staff's, time, basically? I mean, what can you tell us of the progress or what your intentions are to do that?
Yeah,
That
I haven't
language,
looked at.
or how far along were you prior to this happening? Because
I
it's
thought
been,
the tree ordinance was just about done last July. It would have been.
well, all the input and everything else has been completed. It was just the
Right.
language of the ordinance that was needed to be completed.
Yeah.
And so that's why I asked, is it not, none of it started, or is it some of it on its way, or what's, it's your, your item, so that's why we asked you.
Should we put it on the agenda for next week and give Chad a chance to look into it? Seems like we're putting him on the spot, and I think give him a time to look into it and report at the next, put it on the agenda, so it's blatantly.
If you want to,
What do you think, Chad?
otherwise
Do you have enough information
I think he
now?
understands what we're asking of him, I mean, of where it's at. I mean, you're aware that those were the projects that we've been working on, right? So, I mean, I don't think it's,
Well, where are we with that?
well, that's what I'm asking, I mean, that's why, it's not accusatory, it's just
Oh, yeah,
where's
no.
it at? I
Yeah.
mean, that's the question.
Yeah, so it has not been brought to council. Sure.
Right.
But
But I
is
mean,
it
as far as
ready?
it,
Sorry.
yeah,
Is it ready to be
is it-
taken to council?
No, I
you-
wouldn't say it's right.
Okay. Is that something that you can work on?
I can try and fit it into my schedule, but again, so y'all are directing staff.
Right, we're not,
Yeah,
They should
no.
typically, make a motion to advise council,
of course,
to
right,
advise the town manager.
right, but that's why we had to just figure out
Yeah, I
where
mean,
the,
I'm
where the
busy.
status is, yeah, oh, yeah,
Busy,
yeah. Yeah.
But it's something I can work on with the planners.
Mhm. Well, I'll make a motion then. I'll make a motion that we update the town council on specifically those 3 remedial projects that were ongoing prior to the disaster, and what their wishes are to whether or not that's a priority.
Well, let's stress
And
the
those-
need. I think.
Yeah,
we
and
need
those
to-
3 are the tree ordinance, the vegetation ordinance, and the relationship to, I know this is a long motion, in relationship to the build back and the importance of the build back. And then, again, I think, the other one that's there that maybe is not as important is the remedial of the South Florida Water Management District model ordinance, which is the landscape irrigation ordinance that the rest of, we're the only ones in the county that haven't adopted it. So it's really just a administrative issue, whether or not they,
That was water restrictions, right?
so that's my motion. Before we discuss it.
What is it again, Steve? Can you restate it?
No, don't make me do it.
What are there are 3 ordinances.
There's 3 ordinances. There's a tree ordinance, there's a vegetation ordinance, and there's the Southwest Florida Water District's model ordinance for landscape irrigation.
So what we want to do is we want to
So,
advise
I need
the
a second
council that
before
this
we-
needs to be.
Right, or what they,
I'm just
where
trying to
they would,
understand what,
whether they want to direct staff to work on that, to finish it, I should say.
well, I will second it, but I think we need to clean up the language a little.
Should we do 3 separate motions, one for each of the proposals?
It might be clearer then.
Yeah, don't second it yet then.
Okay.
I'll withdraw my motion.
No
redo it.
second.
All right, I'll withdraw the motion,
So the first motion,
right?
yes.
So now I'll make another motion, so it's cleaner. I make a motion that the Marine Environmental Resource Task Force advises council that there's 3 remedial projects
They need their.
that need direction. One is the tree ordinance, the second is the vegetation ordinance, and the third is the, we'll call it the water ordinance.
And I'll second that. Spill out a second.
All right, discussion? So you guys are all aware of those 3, correct, from our previous meetings and the time we spent? I mean, these are a couple of years in the making, that's why we, and now is, I feel like now's when we need them.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay, so having said that, why don't we
Take a vote.
take a vote?
Aye.
All in favor?
I,
Opposed? No, okay, motion passes 5-0. So we'll talk to them about that, and they can address
so
that.
Steve, you have copies of these, the tree and the vegetation and all that? Because I think I have papers here, but I don't know if
I
they're
have
the.
whatever electronic copies, I don't know if it's the latest.
You have,
I mean,
okay, good.
Obviously, we went through the current ordinance, I mean, we put a lot
Yeah,
of
we
time
did.
into those, yeah. So
Yeah.
that's the point, is we previously went in front of council and asked them for guidance on it, and they said, go, bring us the legislation to codify. And so that's what was left, is in staff's hands to put that language together to bring to them for vote.
Good.
And so again, with the September hurricane, that we would expect that to be,
Right.
probably progressed.
And we can bring it up at the next council meeting. If we're not on the agenda, we'll just bring it
Well,
up. at whatever.
there's,
Yeah, the committee reports are always on the agenda.
correct, that's right. Good, so that, so we backtracked for that. And any other questions or any other discussion on Building Back Better?
Well, I don't know if this is building back better. Is every house in our neighborhood who's had their concrete cut open for various reasons has found massive holes in their sewer pipes, undetected previously.
Oh,
And that means active sewage going into, underneath their slab, and probably going, they're all canal houses, going right into the canal. So we're all wondering about how different things are reaching the canal. I think there's a lot of sewage going from houses with cracked pipes unknowingly into our local waterways. And I hate to say it, I would recommend have some ordinance requiring camera verification of intact pipes. Because I think this is probably a really big problem.
I don't know, I mean, that's a good point, Greg, I wasn't aware of that there's holes in,
In the sewer lines?
well, the older ones, I imagine.
The
are
cast iron.
Yeah, cast iron.
But with Ian, you could have had shifting and breaking of the plastic lines.
Sure, but we had, and I can't remember if it was FGCU, but there was a point source pollution water testing project that went on. Chad, you can
Roundhouse.
probably, if you could help jiggle the memory there. I know Penny was involved with it, and they did
She's no
do
longer
testing
doing it.
in canals and Bayside and Gulf side.
Yeah, there was a citizen science project that was happening where they would go and test.
But do you recall that there was anything
So
that
I don't
resulted
think
from
he
that
was
as far
testing-
as, as far as human,
Yeah,
human
they
waste?
came up with the maps of the island, and it's all color-coded dots of what kind of pollutants they found, and over time, because they did it for 2 years.
Right. But I don't remember there being,
no, I don't.
that's
mean,
why I asked if you remember that.
Yeah, so, I mean, there hasn't been a town project to test for intercoxide, which is the indicator for
Right.
fecal.
Right. But I was wondering whether
There has been a project by Calusa Waterkeepers,
Mhm.
and they've been posting regular data. If you go to Calusa Waterkeepers website,
right,
and they'll show you all of the naughty tributaries emptying into Estero Bay.
right, exactly, but not necessarily around the island is the thing.
Correct.
Yeah, so they don't know the point source, but they do, it's coming from the tributaries. I mean, we know that it's, what's the term? for the polluted water. It's, you know, the bay.
Impaired?
Impaired, yeah. I mean, we know it's impaired, right?
I'm not sure if it's impaired for nitric oxide, is it?
It is, yeah, from all tributaries. All tributaries coming in, but also, I mean, let's face it, the island here is contributing to that as well, I would guess. So, to your point,
We could, I mean, we can't control what's going into the tributaries, but we can control what we're putting on the island into the waterway.
no, no question. Yeah.
So that's the only reason. I mean, we can't control the farms or the whatever, but we can, if it's a problem, regulate ourselves.
Mhm.
I mean, I had our stuff cameraed last year, and we're intact, but we're cast iron with some sleeving. I mean, I think it's,
Yeah, the town owns a wastewater system, correct? Isn't that what we just,
I think that's county. I
It's
think-
not on
I think,
island.
Wastewater's county.
wastewater is counting? So that would be a project, you know, that would be a request to make to the county, correct?
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm hearing.
What do they do, Greg? Just drop a camera down your
Your sewer.
down your drain and it
Look at the whole system.
Well,
checks
they-
it all the way out, yeah?
I mean, the reason we did is we found a broken pipe from a shower. So I said, wait a minute, what else do we have? So they didn't camera the rest.
They had I did see a crew out on Estero Boulevard that was a wastewater crew, and they were putting smoke through the waste system to find out where the openings were. So is that, I mean, that certainly would be, to me, that would be a much more financially, you know, acceptable option than the camera every sewer line.
So I'm talking home sewers,
If there's,
but that was only $100.
okay, I mean,
It was not prohibitively expensive.
well, I mean, how they do it, I guess, is up to them. The request would need to come from us, correct? So, so who would be best to make that request? Right, the town council? Do you have a motion?
I make a motion that we investigate the magnitude of the problem of home sewer leaks to contribute to pollution of our bay waters.
I'll second that.
Discussion? That's something we can include to the council, to ask them.
Yeah, we'll get some direction, how, if they want us to look into it further, or if they have another approach.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, 5-0. Got it. Plans and wastewater. Got it. All right. Still on the subject of building back better.
I have something totally different.
Do you want to save it for members report, or do
Sure.
you want to? Okay, let's do that then. We may set a record for quickness on this meeting here, so we'll do that. So having said that, we can move into members, items, and reports. So maybe starting to my right here, Vice Mayor.
I think I did what I wanted to.
All right. I've got a quick update here, and this was actually at the request of, the update was request of Councilman Beach, and that was just to share the turtle glass research findings at the last FWC Sea Turtle Symposium. They presented research on the turtle glass, the indoor to outdoor, what's the term I'm looking for here?
Light transmittance.
Light transmittance, very good, thank you, Chad. Obviously, this was an issue that came up earlier when we modified our turtle ordinance from 15% back to 45% based on the DEP model ordinance. Essentially, that was based on the fact that there was no empirical evidence or research done to determine what exactly was the correct window tint. The research they found is that 30% is the number, so it is not 15%. And at 30%, you would basically not have to close your drapes.
Less than 30%?
Less than 30%, correct. 30% and below. Inside to outside light transmittance, correct. And I don't think that research yet is, I'm not sure if it's posted or we haven't gotten a copy of it yet, the presentation. But the FWC did do the research in coordination with the glazing and we'll just call it the window lot.
Fenestration?
Fenestration, right, glazing and fenestration. Organization. So 30% is the number. And the reason I bring it up is that maybe that's something also in the future that we may want to bring to the attention of town council, so that as we build back, homeowners understand that that is an option that would prevent them from having to draw their drapes in the evening and prevent them from non-compliance as well as their rental guests. So that's all I have.
So just topic for discussion. How do you, any suggestions on enforcement whenever you see interior lights and it looks like it's, how do you gauge light transmittance and?
Well, with your spectrometer, is that kind
So
of?
spectrometer is measuring the spectrum of the light. It's not measuring the intensity of the light per se.
Okay.
I think even I think Sea Turtle Conservancy did some measurements of kind of intensity, but that's not what our spectrometer is built for.
Correct.
So, I mean, again, it's
Right.
the difficulty, more just saying the difficulties of enforcement and seeing lights and how far they are away, what windows are they behind.
Mm-hmm.
Spectrometer wise, we've got that covered now. At least we know if it's long or
Mhm.
short wavelength.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. We'll have to look at that, but also to that point, if you're required to put in, as you build back, the 30%, then that would, of course, be less of an issue. Whether or not you could measure it is one thing, but you certainly would relieve the issue by installing the proper glass.
Yep.
I mean, is it
So-
a real issue, wavelength and number of lumens on the beach? And not, I mean, what if you have a
Wavelength,
$1 million lumen light inside your house and you have 30% going through, you're gonna have a lot of light still going through.
It's a question of intensity.
So, I
yeah.
mean, but I'm not the turtle expert, but isn't the number of lumens on the beach and wavelength the most important thing?
Yeah, so there's studies that show that intensity of light is proportional to the effect of disorientation.
But a lumen meter is a very cheap, easy thing to get.
Right, but,
I mean, I know, but we
What are
don't
you
have a
measuring?
regulation stating how many lumens on the beach.
sure.
But I've always thought that we kind of backwards. We really just cared light on the beach.
So are you gonna measure it from every spot on the beach? Are you measuring it just at the nest?
Just the
Measuring at the
beginning.
water line?
As you're going down the beach in your vehicle, just shine it, and when it gets a spike, stop and see where it's coming from. I don't know. But I mean,
I usually just use my eyes for that, and that's what's recommended by code enforcement.
I understand, but I think the lumen number's probably more important for the turtles.
Wavelength is by far the most important to the turtles. But
Wavelength and lumen, I would think.
intensity, sure, but wavelength for sure. Yeah.
So,
Okay.
So did the town council, I'm pretty sure they passed it or did a resolution that, that the class, the tinting would be what?
45.
45 is the current ordinance, yeah.
So are we looking to maybe go back to town council with this new information?
I mean, that's something we can discuss, but sure, I think that would, it is a benefit to a homeowner that's rebuilding or building a new building, it would be important for them and their lifestyle and the purpose of the building, whether it's a rental, to avoid being non-compliant. And there's ways to, you know, to help in being in compliance, and that's one of them. I mean, my guess would be, and I don't know how because of the bureaucratic process, but the new model ordinance will at some point reflect that in it, I would say, because again, they have the empirical evidence to say that, the research to say this is the right number. Because that's what came up earlier, was that there was no empirical evidence for the recommendation of FWC that 15% was the right number. And so they did the right thing and did the research, and they've come up with the information. So that's just something to share with the council. And again, this was, you know, requested by Councilman Veach to be brought up. So. Yep. So any members' items?
Yeah, I have one. Go ahead. Or you want to go ahead? You go first, Jen.
I wanted to talk about the Murph pop-up. We had one for Beach Talk Radio Sunset Celebration, and it was extremely successful and had lots and lots of people asking questions about planting, about lighting, about wildlife, and there's a lot of people with concerns and questions, and so I think it's time to get the pop-up back going again, and I have been invited to do a pop-up at Moss Marina on the 29th. That's to raise money for beach kids, so I'd like to do that. So it's going to be, I believe, possibly, I don't know if they've gotten their permit, but a 5K on May 13th. So I'd like to do that. And let's see.
While you're looking there too, it's also, I think, important to recognize Beach Talk Radio and their drive to refund and to get donations.
Yes.
Here, here, I was going to say
For the
that.
pop-up.
Yes, I really appreciated that
Yeah,
because I lost everything from,
Yeah, we owe them a hearty thanks.
yes, thank you so much, honestly, from the bottom of my heart.
Earth Day.
Did you get another
Earth
day?
Yes, so Earth Day, and so I think we're meeting back in May the 10th is our next Murph meeting, so I think those dates right there are a good start. Unless anyone else has another date that they would like to have the Murph pop-up.
Do you have everything you need for the pop-up, Jen?
No, but it's, you know, it's gonna take time, like anything else, to build it back better, so I'm just.
Does it all fit in your car?
It
With the help of Gary.
It does, it does. It all fits in there, and I think there's room for more, so,
Good.
yeah.
Thanks,
So
Jeff.
are we all in agreement on those dates for the pop-up?
Yes, with one question.
Yeah.
Is the Earth Day Times Square, or is it going to be the Mound House? Because that's where the,
Mountain House, I still have to talk to, I believe it's Keith, because Allison Geeson is gone, but is it Keith that runs?
Jeff is
the
in
intro?
charge
Oh,
of,
Jeff. Okay.
charge of the
So
parking right now.
I'll call Jeff and ask him if we can be a part of the Earth Day at Mound House.
All set?
Yeah.
Okay. Mary Rose?
Yeah, I'd like to bring up the topic of rat poison. As we clean up our island and some of our nasty piles disappear, there are rodents appearing, and of course people want to get rid of them. It's important that they choose the right poison and not one that's an anticoagulant, because it will go through the entire food chain. I'm thinking of an incident. I happened to be speaking with some women who live near a park in a different part of Florida, and they had a family of great horned owls that everybody was very pleased with, and unfortunately someone put out rat poison that had an anticoagulant with it, and it not only poisoned the parents and killed them, but it killed all 3 chicks very quickly in one season. And so I have a brochure here that lists the names of the poisons to avoid and the ones to purchase if you are determined to poison these animals. What I'd like to do is give this to Jenny so that she can put this in some publication online so that people can make sure they're not buying the wrong thing when they are trying to clean up their properties.
Where did you get
Very
that?
good.
This is from an organization that's called the Tampa Bay Raptor Rescue. And
So that rat poison is benign to birds or to the?
yes, there are safe products, and it's bromethalin. The examples are Fast Track and Assault, which are good to use, or, and I'm not going to pronounce it readily, but the example of it is something called Terad 3, and you want to avoid the Brocad. There's a whole litany here of names that I will murder. That's why I'm not trying to read them, but I can easily send this to everyone, and it's certainly something that's easy to do. If you're going to buy something that is not going to kill everything through the food chain, and will just pinpoint the pests that you want to remove, and it will stop there.
That's
And I-
awesome, really.
Yeah, that is, that's interesting.
I didn't realize that, yeah.
I've been told that. I'm gonna also say one more thing about, not rat poison, but I had spoken with a biologist with FWC downtown at on Victoria, and she told me to really try and let people know that with a lot of roofs collapsing and portions of house that aren't there, that they're seeing a lot of bats flying into these homes, and that it really should be checked out before demolition, because these.
Certainly, yeah, we would want to save those bats,
Yeah, so
and I'm
I was
sure.
curious if when someone gets a demolition permit, does code enforcement or does permitting or someone go out to just make sure that these properties don't have any protected species in them?
Sounds like a job for you, Chad.
I don't see anybody going into a house that needs to be
Not
demoed.
going into, but yeah. it just,
It's not safe to go in, if it's
No,
gonna
not
be demoed,
safe.
it's not safe.
Yeah,
So,
I don't know how you mitigate for that.
yeah.
I imagine once, the bulldozer starts taking swipes at it, everybody inside's gonna
Take
have
off.
an idea of what's about to happen. I don't have a good answer for you. I can look for some guys from FWC. Certainly a new one for me.
Yeah. And another thing, a lot of people are feeling bad for wildlife right now because there's not enough vegetation out there for them to eat. But we need to remind the public that we should never feed wildlife, raccoons especially. So just need to get that out there to the public.
Yeah, the raccoons have become a nuisance.
Yeah, that's a good point. Turtle Time hasn't had to deal with them on the island in the years that I've been doing it, but I think we have to deal with it this year
Oh, I
because
see.
there are reports of raccoons on the beach.
And what's happening is they're getting into garbage and knocking down the garbage and dragging all that garbage right into the back bay. So, because it gets blown out the street. So as soon as they rip into those bags, that's something in the future I'd like to put on the agenda, is talking about clips that go into garbage cans to hold the lids down so they can't, because they will work together to knock down the garbage can and drag the garbage out. And something in the future to maybe talk about.
Does the county have a vector control that would trap them and remove them?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Rose?
I had something on birds, which is interesting. kind of out of my league. I went to the Burrowing Owl Festival in Cape Coral, and there was a display on You Can Save Birds by putting like stickers or things on your windows. I mean, you can buy specific windows, sort of like the turtle tinted windows, that have designs in them, or you can get stickers to put on the glass. They reported that something like 65,000 birds a year die in the United States from flying into windows and dying. And because we were talking about building back better, there's a whole booklet on bird-friendly building. I have not read it, I'll be honest about it. And the company that sent me stickers, it says that they're it's all donated stuff that are stickers, and people can just put them on the window. So I could pass these around just for you to see, but it's something, if people wanted to consider this, they could.
Yeah, especially people who are near a feeder or a place where birds are visiting regularly.
Well, and I used to have birds want to fly through my house if I had all the hurricane shutters up.
Oh.
So they'd want to fly through, so
Yeah.
something, just kind
Okay,
of, something,
Guaranteed.
as you're building back better.
very good. Yeah. All right.
Oh, I have just a quick question. So I rescued eastern box
Yeah, right,
turtle and from a construction site, and I'm just curious how it would have survived. Ian, it's just, I don't know if anyone has any ideas.
Someone's
I
pet
don't
that
know.
escaped.
Well, I've read, Jen, that the gopher tortoises can burrow down and then backtrack behind them, push it so that they're kind of entombed almost, and all their entrances are dammed up so the water doesn't come in. Now, I don't know if they extend an invitation to the box turtles to join them, but maybe they...
Well, you know how many, I think there's something like 3,000 or 4,000 species that take advantage of those burrows.
That's so many.
Maybe.
That's it.
300, yeah.
300.
Yeah. Species live in a, gopher tortoise.
I don't know, but that is a good question.
Yeah.
I understand some rabbits survive too. How in the world did rabbits survive on the island?
They probably
Yeah, they land
clung
on-
onto
They
trees.
floated onto somebody's deck.
I guess the backstroke is
I'm guessing, yeah, there's enough to, there's not a lot, I'll tell you that. I've seen a few dead stuck up in the sea grapes and stuff on the
Oh, really?
beach. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Okay, so, members' items and reports, are you,
I was done,
okay, thank you, Rose.
wanted to make,
So, we have also, again, a public comment session here. If anybody has any public comment, I'd like to address the advisory board?
If I may,
Yes.
as a 40-year real estate developer,
Can you identify, I'm sorry, can you identify yourself? Bob Weiss? Weiss.
what this gentleman, Mr. Folsom, brings up
Mhm.
is relevant to subsoil migration of pollutant items, such as, in this example, broken sewer pipes.
Mhm.
You also have other types of pollutants. This is a very sophisticated area, and I suggest that this committee get a professional help on that topic, or that the Public Works, they already have done it, get involved in that, because it's really a public works situation,
Mhm.
from my observation of what you covered.
Okay.
It's very, very important.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, appreciate that. Okay. Any other comment? Public comment? Okay, not hearing any. We will set our agenda for the next meeting.
do we have a Murph Award? Because I would like
Oh,
to
yeah,
nominate.
actually.
I'd like to nominate Ed and Kim Ryan on Beach Talk Radio.
All right. For,
For their outstanding support of environmental issues on Fort Myers Beach and informing the public, even from the time of the hurricane. There were so many people that didn't know what was going on around the community, and they relied solely on those two for information.
okay,
And so, and then now it's progressed to other issues, but it's all encompassing. They've done a great job.
okay. There's one nomination. Any other nominations? May Rose?
No, I don't have any, but
No? Our bank's empty too, so.
Oh. I'll start looking.
Right, Jennifer? Any nominations? Nope. Doc?
Oh, actually, I take that back. I do have a nomination, but I'm gonna hold that for next time, I think.
Okay, perfect. So, let's move it to a vote. We'd like to nominate Beach Talk Radio, Ed and Kim Ryan as our Murphy Award winners. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Not hearing any? Motion carries. Okay. Excellent.
And what about the article?
Yeah, that just
I
jumped
was
in.
gonna say, they're gonna
That
have to
just
provide
jumped into
their
my
own
mind
article
too.
and their own photo.
I would say that we defer that till next meeting.
Good idea.
So we'll put that on
Is the Observer printing?
Observer's printing. They have online
Yeah, I
and now
could say
they're
it.
also printing. Yep.
Yeah, I could submit it the next, I'm thinking of when I'm gonna see them next, in 2 weeks, I can, by May 1st.
Do we know, I completely forgot which month I had.
Yeah, I'll have to, that's what I said.
Yeah, let's work on it
Yeah, I
next
have that.
meeting.
I'll have to pull that out and see where we're at and probably reassign ones or continue to left off or do whatever we have to do for next month, okay? So, that's the Shoreline Spotlight. We'll get that kick-started again. Good, so back to setting the agenda for next meeting. Let's get updated here. So actually, the chair will attend the upcoming staff meeting, or the council meeting. So results of the advisory board report. I put on there so I can tell you how that worked out. Who else? Staff update on the various projects that are going on.
Sure.
Sound good?
Yes?
It's
All
just
right.
really the three that you want.
So this is a council update, council report update. What else do we have? We have the Shoreline Spotlight. That's really administrative. We, of course, have the Murph Award, which I don't know how we missed that one, but we did. And now's your chance.
Building Back Better, I think
Yeah, let's keep
that's
that,
gonna
let's
be a
keep that on there.
continued conversation for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, if you can't come back up with ideas for communication, I'd say.
Yeah, yes.
I consider communication plan, that's sort of,
That's the big thing.
well, like the Shoreline Spotlight, actually, I mean, now's not the time to discuss it, but the idea is that we each take a month and we provide something to the PIO to share with the community, whatever it might be, on rebuilding sustainably. So think about that a little bit. And anything else?
So with the Murphy Award being granted
To the Ryans?
to the Ryans, are you going to do the write-up with the picture?
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
just do that little blurb, yeah.
Okay.
By
Yeah,
May
I'll
1st.
follow up
That's
with it,
my,
yeah. May 1st?
my
Okay.
deadline.
Okay.
So by then I'll have seen them at least once, if not twice.
Yeah, I can't remember what the deadline was for the newspaper, but it obviously you can catch it any time. Anything else? We can add as needed prior to the meeting, if anything comes up.
And if you want to add dark sky or lighting, that's not been resolved.
We can do that. Let's put dark skies on there as at least topically to find out where we're at and where we're going. So I have staff update, council report update from the meeting, Shoreline Spotlight coordination, of course Murph Award, Building Back Better, and dark skies.
And the sewer, you're gonna present at the town council?
Right, that'll be part of the council report update. Is
So that may be added depending on their desires.
Correct, yeah. Or at least during that section, we can then discuss it. That could be modified prior to the meeting.
Have they gotten down to the south end of the island, clean out the grates?
I don't know where they're at with the
They cleaned ours out
stormwater.
about a week ago. They started at Connecticut and were working to the north. And I was just curious if they hit up any of your streets.
We'll tell with this rainfall.
We have swales on our street, so we don't have any stormwater pipes anyway.
So,
So we haven't seen them. All right, so is there a motion to adjourn?
motion to adjourn?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? 11:42.
Oh,
Record.
right. That is, wow.
Pretty good. Yeah. You run up against lunchtime, and now you